finally like come to fruition. So we have got the new draft system. There's a lot of new faces in here because I might be seeing the drops. Moxie, again, just talk us through the natural things. We've gone over it with the graphic. Now what's it like in the real world?
Okay, Vanguards are going to be taken out immediately, but Lownine, oh, hold on a minute, we've spotted. It's been an EMEA ban from Schmungus first. There's going to be a Magneto save for Lownine, not the Captain America save for Saint Moto, which was a potential. Schmungus and Lownine, as we've established, they're more than happy to play the Doctor Strange as their second Vanguard. Schmungus can now start targeting down one strategist, out goes Loki, before they can instantly save a hero, and by saving a hero, we mean block them from being banned. So we're going to have one-sided EMEA versus one-sided Magneto,
which has been the go-to. Like, that's almost like the first phase of the draft right there. The Venom starts a new one, and this is where, like you mentioned, these triple bans that you have on the side over on Lownine, you might be just put towards support, but you can also be very specific. Taking away the Venom off the hands of Y Andrew is a good way to make sure that there's no real burst moments that can take you out in a game mode like Domination. It's a lot more gambly, it's a lot more risky. The likes of Luna Snow, again, I don't think we really saw all that much of her last week because she was such a common ban in the second phase, but the save of the Ultron means that almost surely Schmungus are going for that triple support.
I mean, yeah, Schmungus are perfectly fine playing the Ultron. Necros has been playing the Ultron a whole lot. They're more than happy to embrace it. Lownine now might be able to take out another strategist. They could go, yeah, they're going to go for the Invis woman. So potentially we're going to see some elements of dive coming through from Lownine's composition, especially because Captain America still has not been targeted by the side of Schmungus, but Lownine are going to prioritize saving that Punisher. Magneto has already been taken out of what Schmungus can play, and they thought about going for the Punisher save, but this is what I was expecting. It's the Cloak and Dagger save instead, because Cloak and Dagger's value has risen exponentially, and there's the targeted Saint Moto ban coming on for no Captain America, but because they went for Saint Moto's hero pool, Crisis gets to play the premier duelist of the Punisher, and they're going to have the Cloak and Daggers Terror Cape line up to make sure that that final judgment is dealing even more damage.
Lots of sort of breakdown. I do find it interesting, actually, looking at the bans that went over to Schmungus. Loki is not a part of them. They went for the Invisible Woman. Is that a little bit like a... It's no point really going there for Desley because there's not as many good ultimates to copy. Like, what do you think of the thought process? Just that alone. You
want to remove things like force physics, because if you're trying to set up a Doctor Strange going in with an Eye of Agamotto has to worry, the cooldown that you worry about the most, other than just being shielded, is the force physics with the knockback. Because the thing about force physics is that if the enemy is in the air, if they're jumping, or, you know, if you're Doctor Strange and you're mid-levitation to set up for your Eye of Agamotto, you actually get pushed even further. Instead of being pushed 10 meters back, you go 15 meters.
The setup ready to sort of begin. An important day for these squads, whether we'll be seeing more of Schmungus over in the playoffs, seeing if they can go a little bit further in this tournament too. At the same time, Lownine, pretty late on in the process of signing up, came through the second qualifiers, looking to see exactly if they can take on Schmungus.
Yeah, Lownine's going to have the Venom and the Psylocke to try and hit into this backline. Desley on that Loki is going to make it a little bit harder for that Psylocke's fate of the Dance of the Butterflies to find the value with the clones being able to spread out the damage. But at first, it's going to be up to the breakpoints. Can these cloaks find the Terror Caves, as we can have a look at Schmungus' POV? They're anticipating that Venom, they're anticipating that Psylocke, playing underneath in the small rooms, make it harder for Saint Moto to actually find the engagement that he's looking for. And it means currently that we're in a 5v5 situation, but with Pine Clone already down for Lownine, they're missing a substantial amount of sustain.
Giving them a taste of their own medicine by Saint Moto running a Venom right into Schmungus and Y Andrew especially. Desley was the one to go down first, and the point is still just trickling over for Lownine. The progression is pretty good for Schmungus. The eliminations are going back their way. A disengage, not losing too many bodies, whilst Schmungus have actually built up a couple of ultimates, but still wailing on a couple.
Yeah, KG, no surprises that he's been able to build up the Eternal Bond over Gonski. Everyone being stacked up on the side of Schmungus. We're getting the primary AoE connecting to all of our players. That and the fact that they've been able to team up the Terror Cape with bogus follow-through on this Maelstrom of Madness has been absolutely crucial. The Saint Moto tries to find the off angle, pressures out Necros on the Panther to make the rest of his team have a little bit more confidence to walk through this choke, but there's no follow-up pressure afterwards. Jerky's not able to get into position. They need to force this Eternal Bond out, and quick quickly. Otherwise, Kragi gets a free Galactic Legend before Wolver's got the ultimate to absorb it.
Jerky is sat on the Dance of the Butterflies, just got it online, wanted to just wait out some of these defensive ultimates that are coming in. Meteor M actually from Wolver, looking to try and find the right target, in the right position, but a little bit of cover, just keeping Schmungus alive for the time being. KG managing to take out Jerky just before the ultimate might have been potentially used. Means that this is not a bad fight for Schmungus. The contest is still there from Lownine, but whittled down. Craggy was the one that started that fight with the Galactic Legend. He's 50% having another one.
Yeah, and Lownine didn't have access to any of their ultimates because Schmungus comes on proof the Psionic Seduction, connecting onto Lownine, connecting onto Crisis before the Punisher can utilize the Final Judgment and the CC immunity of it. And Schmungus off of the back of that, hold on to the point for the entire duration of the fight, which did span an awful lot of time. But now Lownine, they've got the ultimates. The question is, can Crisis actually find this value? They're potentially going to have to pair up Feast of the Abyss and Dance of the Butterflies at the same time. Schmungus don't have a sustain ultimate, but they do have Desley with the regeneration domain and the Loki clones, which means the Feast of the Abyss feasts on air.
Regeneration domain just keeping everybody alive, and it's just a battle of getting these support ultimates online. Wolver though, with the Dance of the Butterflies as support, able to cut through. This should be Lownine able to take the point, but Schmungus have done a really good job of putting this all the way to 99%, saving onto these ultimates and just trying to disengage, making sure the Crisis doesn't get too much value. He does have his ultimate already for the Final Judgment, so really it's just a case of buying time.
Yeah, Crisis has been holding on to that one for a while, actually. They're wanting to wait for Gonski to hit Eternal Bond so that the two can be used in sync, which means that that Punisher is going to be able to continuously receive that 250 heal per second as long as he plays inside the Eternal Bond. Schmungus do have Galactic Legend. Wolver 7% away from the Meteor Ramp. He should be able to get it online as the Galactic Legend ultimate comes on through. Kroggy's looking for any person a little bit isolated, but Wolver is immediately there. That's getting all absorbed. Forces the regen domain as well, coming in through from Desley as Boca Shield was not in position, and Crisis is able to take the Stylor down. Bass Descent comes on through. Necros tries to find the hero moment, takes Gonski down, which means no Eternal Bond to pocket the Punisher.
Got two. The Eye of Agamotto there from Boga. It's just the attention that's been split over on this objective. Lownine fighting back. They were up against Craggy's Galactic Legend. The Meteor M just buying a little bit of space, but Necros just finding people in the shadows in these little corridors to find the picks. And whilst everybody's attention is focused away, you mentioned Boga as a player to watch. He'd catch them out by surprise, and Lownine losing the first point, which I don't know if it's too much of a surprise. Schmungus have been really good in these domination modes. It's a lot more of a intuition coordination kind of play. The one thing you can say about Schmungus is these players as a core have played together quite some time now.
Yeah, Lownine are going to be mixing things up entirely. Crisis actually sacrifices the Final Judgment entirely to swap over to the Winter Soldier, which is a clear indicator Lownine want this dive out of the way. Bionic Hook is going to come in through for the Bucky. If Necros tries to go in deep and catch on to one of these strategists, he's going to get hooked, he's going to get Troopers Fisted, and he's going to send packaged and parceled express style back to his respawn point. The problem, though, is that Lownine, like so much hinges on Jerky and Saint Tomoto, this duo hit squad, being able to find an in into Schmungus's backline, but Andrew on this Enra is making it so difficult for the Venom to have the confidence to take the fight until Diamond Form's gone.
Necros staying on the Black Panther. We saw him get a multitude of multi-kills with the Spider-Man pulling people off the side of the map here, but is opting to stay on something that is a little bit more popular, albeit not by much. Both support ultimates available for Schmungus means that it's sort of their fight to be taking. The Invisible Boundary is available for Pink Clone, but that's pretty much all there is to go for. Both teams holding out for the time being, but Eternal Bond is going to be the initiation, forcing out that Invisible Woman ult.
Yeah, and they had Terror Cape, which meant that they were still taking vulnerability, even through the Invis Boundary. 165 heals per second is nothing for the target focus that Schmungus are able to output. Pine Clone falls, Invis Boundary drops prematurely, and Schmungus will be able to pick up the point, which is horrible news for Lownine. They're on a dive composition. They're going to have to take a brawl fight with half of their team still trying to find an in into Schmungus's back line.
Necros exposed as the environment breaks in around him. He's just trying to find a little bit of a gap. Whilst the diver's gone in from Saitomoto, jumping in onto multiple people with the tendrils. It might be a bit of a struggle to disengage safely here as the swing doesn't quite go where you want. At least you're able to get a little bit more resilience there. with the Psionic Seduction pulling him all the way back in. Boga with the Maelstrom, catching out onto Crisis first, who has he used an ultimate at all this domination game? It feels like he's not had a great opportunity. Wolver, these Meteor M's not quite catching, consistently missing, and Schmungus, much like the first point, wailing out the storm and holding on to the objective as long as they possibly can.
Desley has finally been taken down. The problem is that Necros, just the pressure of the Panther, gets the Vibranium Spear onto the Cloak and Dagger and forces out the Eternal Bond as Gonski just needs to use the dash to create distance between themselves and the Duelist. Lownine will be able to find the flip, but it costs them so much in that engagement. Yes, you're going to have Invis Boundary, but Boga has the Eye of Agamotto to punch through all of that healing. It's going to be up to Crisis. He needs to be the hero. This Bionic Hook needs to be able to take the Strange down before that ultimate comes through. That are the Force Physics. This is why you took the Invis Woman over something like the Cloak and Dagger.
That's a great pick from Craggy, actually. Necros going in, runs into a little bit of anti-dive, a little bit of peel from Jarecki, and then suddenly Craggy's coming in for the peel there too. So managing to actually make this a 6 versus 5 for the time being. Boga just trying to break down these shields. You mentioned the Eye of Agamotto up on the high ground. Can he sort of get the attention taken away from him for a second and jump into the back line? I mean, the Kraken Impact might be the thing that helps. He's only connected onto Jarecki, doesn't quite have their ultimate, and through all of the sort of healing that's coming through, nobody from Lownine quite going down yet. Craggy going to be re-inviting himself back into the fight, and why Andrew's been able to find so much over on this Emma Frost.
Yeah, the Force Physics connected onto the Eye of Agamotto, but KG had the Eternal Bond, which is the better sustain for Schmungus. And it's the longest sustain for Schmungus too. So even though Lownine were able to stop the Eye of Agamotto, so much went into anticipating it that when we tip over to the second stage of the fight, they have nothing to out-sustain the other side. Now, Chris is going to have the Bast Descent, Galactic Legend coming on through for Craggy too. Desley can get a second Eternal Bond online with the God of Mischief, and Saint Samoto and Jerky. We've already seen this pair squad of the Venom, of the Psylocke, has not been able to find anything so far. Lownine need to find much more dive, and it's going to start right now. The counter dive is able to connect. Necros goes down to the Winter Soldier, and Gonski is going to utilize the Eternal Bond just to buy Wolver that opportunity as Terror Kit comes through. Feast of the Abyss almost takes Craggy down off of the back of it, and he will fall afterwards.
Saint finding the opening with a Feast of the Abyss, and now it's if you can sort of keep resetting Schmungus for the time being. Everybody backing off. We're going to hear a little bit of Necros just sort of perusing around, finding an opportunity, potential blood in the water over on like the more accurate site for him, I suppose. But you've got some really nice offensive ultimates. It's a support ultimate, so I'm a little bit worried about. Pink Floyd's going to be the one that gets in there first, but for the Eternal Bonds on either side of Cloak of Daggers, it's a bit more leaning towards Kaiji.
Well, Lownine currently is going to have the lead in terms of strategist advantage, given the fact that, yeah, reset after reset, you said it, and you got it right on one. Winter Soldier, Kraken Impact comes on through, and that means that Desley's copies are actually making it harder for Schmungus to sustain. Down to the butterflies comes out from Jerky, not to be able to find the picks, but because his health bar went low, he needs the intangibility. We move over to the point. Eternal Bond from KG paves the way for Schmungus to be able to set on up into that space. They catch Pineclone on the disengage. Slowly but surely, Lownine are bleeding players that they can't afford to lose. Crisis comes back on the Strange, tries to come in through with the teleporter, but what's he buying time for? It has to be a Feast of the Abyss, but Saint Murderous is being drained of health bar. Schmungus managing to focus via this Venom. They haven't been able to find the pick, but they have been able to chase him out. He's back in 4%. Feast of the Abyss comes on through, doesn't find anything. No, Schmungus scatter away while Andrew grabs Pineclone to make sure that there's no follow-up, no potential sustain from the Venom, and Schmungus take burn in 2-0.
I mean, that point on the map has given us some really cinematic last fights that are happening. But there for Schmungus, it's the fact that they survived through all of those offensive ultimates right at the end there. They didn't have that Eternal Bond from the Cloak and Dagger. They didn't have the Loki ultimate. It was a lot of it, the regeneration domain. People forgetting how strong that ability is. But also, when we did see the Loki copy the Cloak and Dagger, what I really liked is that they didn't just instantly use the ultimate. They used the full duration of it. And it's not just copying an ultimate that Loki's ultimate is. You copied their whole kit, which means that you do get another Terror Cape. So you do have a lot more like opportunities to put that extra damage in on the opponent. But it's really suiting the fact that like Schmungus love those kind of chaotic fights. It was a lot more meta from them in comparison to the last time that we saw them play on Domination. but man, it really suits them.
Yeah, no, like you said, the Loki going for the copy of the Cloak and Dagger and then holding onto the Eternal Bond, there's a reason for that. You don't get pulled out of your ultimate early if you're Loki copying an ultimate that has a duration. So one of the ways that these players actually min-max the God of Mischief coming through from these Lokis is that they go for the copy, and then that 12-second copy duration can get extended if they use something like the Fate of Both Worlds from a Luna or an Eternal Bond coming on through from a Cloak and Dagger. And where it gets even more meta in terms of min-maxing is that if you're a Loki and you use Regeneration Domain and then you use God of Mischief, that cooldown doesn't get put on pause. That continues all the way through your duplicate. So what you can actually have is you can have another regeneration domain into copy, into ultimate, into regeneration domain coming out of it. So you essentially get 3 ultimates for the price of 1, which is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I mean, a hell of a first map to go over. L9 wanting to do a little bit more if they want to be trying to make it to playoffs, but we're going to go for a quick break. When we come back, it's their choice of map, and we'll see if they can bring things on as even against Schmungus very soon. So don't go anywhere. The sun might be setting on L9's chances to be making it for playoffs, but we are heading to a realm of eternal night as Midtown is going to be the map that they've chosen. And we've spoken a little bit about like the draft system, but also the tournament system has also changed a little bit more when it comes to game modes as well. Every series will start with domination, so that King of the Hill control game mode type we will always get at the start. Then the team that loses gets to choose map. But where is it different from before? Because it used to be that you could pick any map that you wanted realistically. Now there's a couple of caveats, right?
Yeah, so the team that loses, so like you said, to start us off with, we're always going to be starting on a random domination map to make up for the fact that it's random. The team who is the highest seed will be rewarded with being able to pick their side, which is important because it manages to secure them the ban side that they want, right? They're both technically attacking because it's a domination round, but they'll be able to decide if they want the triple bans or if they want to be able to go for the ban last on that defender side. Then the team that loses is able to take us to a different map type. It can be either convoy or convergence, and they get to choose the side, whether they defend first, whether they attack first. The team that then loses that next one with the third map get to take us to a map that has not been played, a map type that hasn't been played. So if convergence is picked in round number 2, they have to take us to a convoy map, and then they'll also be able to get to pick the side that they choose.
So if you're just an absolute tearing domination team like Schmungus is, for example, where they can do a lot of damage, if you lose, you can't just keep taking, you can't take us to Hell's Heaven, for example, or
no.
Krakoa, right? They have to take us to what would be, in this case, a convergence map, because obviously Midtown is a full convoy, full payload, lots of awkward fights to be taken. But it does feel a little bit like the first point is kind of what defines the map for teams, whether the defenders can hold out that first objective for a good amount of time. There's a couple of nice little stall ideas with the Penny Parker and such, but you do also see some absolute wipeouts if the attackers keep stalling out the defenders, which I'm curious what side Lownine is naturally going to pick. What do teams usually go for when they pick this map as a side?
So Midtown is an interesting one because, like you said, we see so many different compositions for different areas of the map that you fight in. At the beginning of the season, when the Penny Parker and the Rocket sort of, I'm not saying cheese, but definitely grated mozzarella over the top of composition was coming on through, you would grab something like a Rocket Raccoon, an Adam Warlock, a Cloak and Dagger, something that with the Adam you can self-revive, with the Rocket you can revive someone if they fall prematurely, with the Cloak and Dagger everyone's playing inside that very small room, so Eternal Bond comes online very, very quickly, and then you would run either the Penny, well, you would run the Penny Parker, but you would then run something like maybe a Strange or a Magneto to be able to bounce onto that point and make sure that the payload didn't move. And that was a very good strategy. For a lot of the time, it would actually be able to complete full holds, except the attacker's side respawn is right behind that little small room, and what people have started doing is scouting out whether or not it is a spawn cheese comp, and they've gone back to spawn, and they've had their Vanguard players pick up duelists, and they've ran a solo strategist Mantis, and they picked up a Punisher or a Storm or a Moon Knight or a Squirrel Girl or a combination of all all of those, and they've just thrown spam into that room, and that spawn hold has snapped within the first fight.
It's an interesting one too, because Lownine also lost domination up against Blood Carudo in the elimination bracket on Sunday. They chose to take them afterwards and win on, because they reverse swept, Yggdrasil's path. They didn't choose this map. So I'm wondering if it's a little bit of like Schmungus might expect us to go here, or whether it's just a case of Yggdrasil's map has been in since like the closed beta, and the Schmungus players have been playing this game pretty much since the birth of this game, right? So it's a little bit like take them to the newest map that there's probably a little bit more adapted meta to, and just hope for the best. Or do you think that there's certain characters that they want to try and lead towards or get away from? So far, again, this part of the draft up until now pretty much always plays out this way. It's very cookie cutter. I guess also the different thing is actually the save of the Loki instead of actually saving a tank, so they don't have Emma Frost or Magneto.
Yes, so this is very different to what we traditionally see. Lownine are going to be barred access to both the Emma and that Magneto, but they will be able to save the Loki for themselves and bar Schmungus out of that Loki too. They're also going to be able to bar White Andrew out of that Venom. So a lot of the dive potential coming through from Schmungus has been cut in terms of value that it can be finding. Schmungus are going to remove the Luna from play, not just because of how strong Fate of Both Worlds is, but also the idol aura, the snowflake that you can place, especially given the fact that we've seen Lownine try and put Jerky towards that Psylocke, and having that Luna in the mix does give that Psylocke much more stability, given the fact that she would receive the idol aura, be out of the Luna's LOS, and still be receiving healing, as Lownine are going to be prioritizing yet again, picking up the Invis, which means probably a targeted Captain America ban coming on through here for the side of Schmungus, and there it is. Lownine's Vanguard lineup has been, well, cut is saying it nicely.
So what are you sort of feeling? It's weird to see a team save both the supports and the Loki. You're not really going to copy the invisible boundary because healing per second isn't as strong as some of the other support ultimates. Do you think it's more the Loki to copy what they're expecting would be a Cloak and Dagger on the other side?
Counter dive. Loki is really strong here for counter dive, plus the fact that you're going to have regeneration domain, which is a cooldown, but the value that it brings to the table might as well be a full strategist ultimate in and of itself. It's one of the only things that allows you to actually live one-shot potential, because regeneration domain doesn't just stop healing you if you get one-shotted. It converts the damage that you would be taking in that one-shot directly to your health bar. So with it, you can full face tank, Iron Man Maximum Pulse, and Meteor M, whatever you choose, and you get 3 of them to position 2 as long as you have your doppelgangers up, because it copies everything that the Loki casts, including that regeneration domain.
That'd be a bittersweet symphony that might be happening for L9. And the drafts have been already getting pretty spicy. We sort of expected things to maybe homogenize a little bit more, common things happening, but no, first game's given us some interesting tidbits. Jerky's going to be over on the Johnny Storm, Human Torch. That combination is going to come in to just give him a little bit more sustain in the air for the most part. Actually, a lot of flyers. Storm we saw a lot of in the Invitational on this map, because you do have these sort of high lines to hide behind. But seeing the Storm and the Torch together is an interesting one.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be having a lot of damage burst coming on through from the side of Lownine. Jerky as well, getting to play with the Invis woman from Pineclan, is going to be receiving that Guardian Shield, and already just getting to put so much poke pressure down onto the side of Schmungus. Necros on this Wolverine is not getting a single inch to be able to move. We can see his silhouette there just moving around the right side, but he has not so far been able to try for a hit onto either of these flyers or onto that Doctor Strange. Pineclan too is going to be guarding that Strange. If the Wolverine tries to get through, it's going to be a force physics to deny the feral grab coming on out, as it's going to be Eternal Bond from KG. This is one of the strengths that Schmungus has. No one's gone down to the poke pressure that Lownine is able to put, which means that KG has been able to channel all of it into sustainability, the Cloak and Dagger charge, and Lownine lose the Strange. Without that Vanguard, they have to go back to this respawn point.
It was only 2 eliminations that we've seen on this map so far, and a minute and a half has passed. It's a good job for Schmungus to actually just deal with all of this damage coming in, mitigating it, but maybe L9 losing a little bit of that burst, being able to bring somebody down from 100 to 0. Necros looking to try and find a dive in the right position, getting the Doctor Strange out of position. And there's the final judgment from Crisis, trying to find a little bit of space. He needs a little bit more support of his team, and he's got the backing of them. And finally, he finds an opening onto Boga.
Yeah, Invis Boundary not going to be able to come through in time to save the Doctor Strange. Supernova combined with a Mega Hurricane, and Schmungus' Invis Boundary is not going to be able to keep healing through that one. That's another reason why Lownine wanted to combine both of these flyers, but Schmungus have that Strange. Boga fell early in the fight, so he will be able to instantly set up another teleport coming on through Necros. Launches directly out, trying to find a grab. Last Stand is going to be in play. Gonski went for the copy of Invis Boundary. Can they find anything? The grab potentially to get one of these players outside of it, but Necros with the low HP turns onto the Bucky, or rather the Punisher fully instead, to make sure that Crisis goes down. There is no firepower in Lownine's composition, lacking that Punisher.
Schmungus being able to contest with the portal. Both Doctor Stranges in play, the head-to-head that we wanted to see, both of which having the Eye of Agamotto. Is you're looking at Desley for the Force Physics to see if they can stop things from happening. Pinklone was very good at doing it for L9 in the last map, but it didn't matter all too much in the end, as Schmungus have been able to take it. Eye of Agamotto just skirting across the sky, not being able to see or catch anything, and the eliminations going well into the direction of L9. Craggy's been really good at these sort of redemption arc fights, but even he can only hold off for a little bit longer. It's taken just over 3 minutes for L9 to get to the point of this map, but they keep things moving, most importantly. Yeah,
and they've already pushed so far ahead. Securing all of this space for the Flyers is absolutely paramount. Schmungus, if they want to be able to come back into another fight, they need to be just fought inside this room, where both the Storm and the Torch can play above the door frame, still putting pressure, but making sure that they're not within LOS of the Punisher, and that is a huge pick. Pyro Prison denying the space, adding that damage tick onto Schmungus' players just for standing there, but Necros answers back. Crisis with the final judgment goes down, and without that Punisher, Lownine know that they've lost a lot of pressure onto both Kragi and Necros. They have no choice but to bend the knee and respect Schmungus enough to let them walk up.
Yeah, it's an opening because the good work that Schmungus did on the defense might be all for naught if they let this second objective flake through this quickly. There's the Fire Tornado coming through, and everybody's stuck in this corridor. What else can you do other than just burn them down? The final judgment's going to be used from Craggy, all of that trash damage leading towards a big ultimate, and most importantly, whilst it's not leading to eliminations just yet, it has split these attackers. It means that this is not going to be a clean disengage. It's going to be more ult charge as the Rage of Ultron's going to be used from Necros, and more time wasted from Schmungus on this defense.
This is smart from Schmungus. This is taking space away from a composition that has Flyers, and Flyers need space. They need to be able to get into the air, not through these door frames. And Schmungus are going to be able to make it cost. Saints and Motor on that Strange could potentially try and go for a portal play a little bit later, but first they have to get past this fight, this Punisher turret, and it's being giga-pocketed. The Aegis from the Emma, the Doctor Strange shield, regeneration domains already come out from Gonski's side just to make sure that they have the firepower, the stance to be able to push Kragi back, as finally Lownine will be able to move forward. The ultimate comes on through. Final judgment. Schmungus try to double shield off that disengage. They fall back into the small rooms, and they do manage to disengage without losing a single player, but Lownine want more. If his boundary gets invested, Kaji answers the back with a turtle bomb, but goes too aggressive, and he goes down.
Boga, he's got the Eye of Agamotto with these invisible boundaries. There's a lot of little ways that you could just slip in and catch people out. It's going to be used. It gets 4 onto L9. There's the final judgment as well. That's the combination that L9 were really not wanting to go up against. Schmungus have done so well to just deal with all of this offensive damage that's coming in from L9, whether it's just holding back the S key to disengage, all these sort of support resources, not even ultimates, but just keeping everybody alive for the time being for Schmungus. How on earth are they surviving these fights?
Crisis now swaps over to the Hela. No more Punisher. We're going to have Hitscan to potentially put pressure onto Necros up in that sky. He's got the Rage of Ultron too. Lownine are anticipating Schmungus getting aggressive with that one and trying to take away more of their space. Firestorm is going to come into the mix. Rage of Ultron paired up with Psionic Seduction, but the Storm has already been able to combine with the Torch. However, all of the picks are on Schmungus' side. The regen domain coming on through. Kragi out of the way entirely. Deadly up on that high ground, push untouchable inside the Dagger Dome coming on out, and Lownine have been able to get their way onto the payload, but it feels like it's just temporary space.
He does have some help, but he actually gets Saitomoto as he's about to ultimate. The shotgun's enough. And this is going to be a rough contest. You've got the supports coming in from Schmungus to hold this one down, but because the last person that went in was Saitomoto, there's no Paul on the other side. Schmungus holding on well and able to actually take this one incredibly cleanly. Potentially.
Lownine came in with a composition that had so much snowball potential. The problem was that it got melted. Quite literally, it just got melted. Craggy was so pocketed from his team. They understood the second that they saw the Punisher, the Storm, the Torch, Craggy's just getting an absolute gallery to fire onto. They're flyers. They've only got one invis. Loki is one of the worst strategists at being able to heal flyers because his primary fire is AoE based. The way that you aim with Loki, you don't aim directly at them, you aim for their feet. You aim so that you can get the most amount of splash heal onto the ground so that it can connect onto multiple players. That's why he's so strong in a triple Vanguard composition. Into flyers though, his accuracy is going to be subpar.
Oh, it's a rough one. I gotta say too, so let's say I'm a tier 3 sub to all of the Schmungus players. What's the win condition? How do they, like, is where they got on the map good enough? Is it worse than you'd sort of aim for? Is it better? What is Schmungus's win conditions here, and how do L9 stop this?
Momentum. For Lownine, they need a long A and they need a longer B. One fight needs to be won on B after the A take, if the A gets taken at all. Lownine cannot go for the spawn hold because you're just in so much danger of being stuck on a bad composition for multiple fights in a row. As Saitomoto's on the Venom, but Andrew's still got that ammo. If they try and go for this dive, you're just getting Diamond Form grabbed up. They're on a triple strategist composition to have multiple avenues of sustain as well as damage output from Jerky up in the sky. But Schmungus with the Punisher and that Wolverine can just close up the distance, especially the Groot is in danger if you get...
They've got Crisis.
They go for Crisis instead.
He's still managing to survive. A brief panic, but nothing more than that. The Ultron out from Jerky this time means that there's a little bit of a swap up as Craggy's gone for something a little bit more boots on the ground, to say the very least. Wolver finding his first pick, which has been delayed often so far in this first part of the map, but eventually things are starting to look pretty good for Lownine. The elimination started to follow, but Craggy is always very good at turning what looks like a 4 versus 6 into a 1 versus 6 in favor of Craggy almost.
They've got Final Judgment and Eternal Bond in this next fight. Lownine going to be stuck inside the invis boundary from Deadly coming on through. It traps everybody. If you try and pass out of it, you get slowed and you get melted by the Final Judgment that Craggy is going to be able to use to bypass Lownine's invis ultimate entirely. Crisis tries to find the hero moment. Gonski with the God of Mischief tries to pocket it with the regen domain. They have, with that Ultron shield too, been able to find the space to get the picks. Lownine by the skin of their teeth, and a Final Judgment from Crisis come through with a very fast turnaround. But Schmungus with 2.5 minutes still to play with have that Eye of Agamotto, and all eyes yet again have to fall to Pineclone to be able to prevent it from getting value.
They should be aware of it. Most players at this level are very good at knowing exactly when gut instincts start to cut off. A last stand from Necros could catch them out and maybe provide a little bit more space. Saitomoto spotted in the back line, diving in, swinging back out just to keep people away from the main focus of this front line. Objective now back in hands of Schmungus, and there's only a couple more meters to dive into, but not quite enough. Necros wanted to build some of that rage, but he also wants to keep that HP bar up as much as possible. Desley going down. Wolf has been very good at finding these first eliminations in the fight, and the last stand not really connecting onto much, forcing out some ultimates. Even the Eye of Agamotto from Boga just missing, thrown across the sky yet again. And the Final Judgment from Craggy wanted to try and come out, but the Loki copy in Invisible Boundary is a great counter from Lownine.
Yeah, Schmungus tried to double stack against Psionic Seduction and Final Judgment to make everyone from Lownine vulnerable, but they managed to just force the EMEA out before turning onto that Punisher. The Groot was too to be able to get the late stagger pick onto this EMEA. There's no part of the map for Andrew to try and fall off of to regroup with the team faster. 53 seconds left. Schmungus have one good fight and potentially a Fogu that goes down early. A teleport recontest, but it's looking dicey.
Lownine, as a reminder, not having access to Magneto nor Emma Frost, going for something that's a little bit more like March 2025, but Saint-Amoto's been surviving. Wolf has been doing such a good job mitigating damage with the walls, but a Strangled Prison on the horizon is something that Schmungus need to be careful about. Invisible Boundary, more aggressive it has to be. It has to be on the objective, but it does mean that there are players in the backline that want to try and jump into the Invisible Boundary to survive. Just as the Strangled Prison's about to come in, the Rage of Ultron cutting through alongside the Final Judgment means a Crisis should be getting a hold of this one. It's going to be really hard for Schmungus to be able to re-engage onto this. There's not going to be a portal play. Boga is the last to go down on the point, and Crisis, giving Craggy a taste of his own money, is going to bring us to a third map.
What a play from Lownine. Strangling Prison and at the same time overlapped with Rage of Ultron and Final Judgment. They create so many targets that Schmungus just don't have enough players to focus down every single one of them in time. They go for the Ultron, but that just means that Crisis on that Punisher is free to let it rip, with the Final Judgment quite literally shredding down all of those players from Schmungus stuck inside that Groot ultimate. We said that it needed to be long stalled out fights coming on through from the side of Lownine, that they needed to actually give their Punisher the space where they could pocket him and make sure that Final Judgment was finding the value that it should be in this meta, and that's exactly what they were able to do.
Yeah, we spoke about it a little bit in the break as something to sort of highlight for this one, of like Crisis was very quiet in that first map. Is that his fault, or is that just because he is playing almost like the star duelist in a sense that he's not getting the resources that he needs? And I think we kind of got the answer here. He had a lot more freedom. Craggy was also sort of mirroring the same style, but I'm curious, right? Like, we spoke a lot about like what the bans are typically looking like. It feels that the general gist is you either want Magneto or Emma Frost. It is almost impossible to get both of them. It is an absolute disaster of a draft if you get neither of them. Here, Lownine didn't get any of them, and it seemed fine. Is that something to ponder, or is that just a case of the scenario that's happened in front of us?
Well, Lownine got the Loki. They specifically wanted the Loki, and while yes, Loki is going to struggle into healing flyers, Loki is absolutely a-okay at healing a Strange and a Groot and a Punisher, who are all going to be grouped up. And then you also have regeneration domain, because that was the thing. Like, we saw so many times that when Craggy and Crisis went head to head in terms of just utilizing that Final Judgment, Schmungus would be able to keep that Punisher up for longer. But with Lownine being able to come through with that regeneration domain, overlapping that heal potential over any strategist ultimate coming through at the same time, meant that Crisis was able to stay alive so much longer, even through all of the focus fire coming on through from Schmungus' side.
We didn't really get too much of the Strange head-to-head. There were a couple of moments here or there, for sure, but Saint-Amoto sort of switching it around. Somebody that we sort of expected or wanted to see a bit of his Captain America because of how strong it is has sort of done well to flex over. And even with Volvar pulling out a bit of the Groot, sort of rolling back the months, not quite the years, but the months, means that this is a pretty decent series, all things considered. And there's still quite a bit on the line when it comes to qualifying for stuff. We are going to see exactly what Schmungus are going to choose for their final map. It has to be a convergence one, as we sort of briefly spoke about. But we're going to see exactly what that's going to be very soon as we see how this best of three and this first qualifying spot for playoffs for today is going to go. See you soon. Obviously, drops are available today, as we're going to go over with some of the cool stuff that's happening in Ignite. But just as a reminder, today is a bit important for EMEA. It's the second week, it's the first game that we're seeing, and the third map. Whoever wins this will be going to the top 8 of EMEA, which means playoffs, which means a straight buy into stage 2, which is a little later on this year, and avoiding to have to go through the gauntlet again, which Lownine are going to be more used to because we saw them come through the open qualifiers recently. For Schmungus, they've been able to do the same. I think these are actually both teams that came in for the second open qualifiers, right? So it's basically who gets to stay and who has to go through it potentially all again, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it is going to be determined by one third and final map, which we know the map type, it has to be convergence. Where do Schmungus decide to take us, though? That is the question. It can't be Shinshibuya. Shinshibuya is out of the map pool, as I'm sure many people are very happy about. That point C on Shinshibuya has been the bane of every single Attack side's push for literally the inception of Marvel Rivals Esports. I could potentially see maybe a Hall of Djalia coming on through, but I feel like that might benefit Lownine's playstyle, especially given the fact that even if Saint Moto does not get the Captain America, he's going to be going for the Venom, and Venom being able to attack Hall of Djalia, be able to instantly dive onto the defender side high ground, just makes it a little bit trickier for the defenders to be able to spin all of the plates of keeping that space intact.
Yeah, Clintar also seems like a pretty good one, because we did see that Schmungus had a routing attacking side against OG Seed, where they pretty much won every team fight that they were in, but they were really proactive in catching out OG Seed as they were trying to reset, trying to regroup. And I think that that's going to be important up against Lownine. It did feel that we were talking a little bit about Crisis not getting the resources that they needed. I think it's important that Schmungus don't allow Crisis to get the resources that he wants in some of those fights, which is proving a little bit harder to do in Midtown.
Yeah, and I mean, Schmungus as well, we have to remember, Lownine having lost that first round of domination, they got to choose which side that they wanted to opt for, and they opted for the side that got the first save. They opted for attacker's side, so that once they had the instabans come through, they immediately got to protect and ban out that Loki from Schmungus being able to bar them from it. And that definitely felt like a really big win condition in terms of resources that they were able to give, not so much on the attack, but much more so on the defense. And Loki is very strong on the defense, because you have the opportunity of putting your doppelgangers wherever you want before the fight begins, as opposed to an attacker side Loki, where a lot of the time you're burning those cooldowns either at the very opening stage of the fight or halfway through it. So the cooldowns are going to be coming through a little bit later into the fight potentially than you actually would want them to be able to combat some of those ultimates coming through. Schmungus having lost, however, that Midtown means that they can stop Lownine from picking that side immediately, and if they want the Loki gone, they can take the Loki out before Lownine can do anything about it.
So we did see Lownine doing something a little bit interesting with the draft, with not wanting to get one of the main two vanguards, Magneto, Emma Frost, going for the Loki, kind of like you mentioned. Is that well, first of all, is that something that you would want to see again? I guess, like, it worked for them, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? But also, I guess, with the sort of focus being on taking out some of the strong supports, it does feel like vanguards. Yeah, you have Magneto and Emma Frost that seem to be ahead of the pack, but Captain America feels really good. Groot still feels strong in the right hands. It's just that Wolverine is also very popular. It's really only the Thing that's sort of fallen out of play, and Thor is sort of and ahhing, I suppose, on where he is. Also, as a reminder for people, there is a patch today. We are on the old patch for this part of the tournament. I would imagine for playoffs, we would also go to, you know, the 275 HP Moon Knight and the more expensive ultimate from Storm. That is not going to be in play today, so just throwing it out there so people know to not expect a Moon Knight meta with his extra 25 HP. But yeah, I guess the question before, Moxie, like, would you want L9 to stick to their guns here?
I think so. I think if you're Lownine, like, the thing about Lownine's Vanguard lineup is that they're very flexible. Saint Moto likes playing the Cap, likes playing the Venom. Like, if they get full meta, they're going to be happy that they get full meta. If they don't get full meta, it's fine. They've got workarounds in terms of the Vanguard lineups, and they'd rather have things like the Loki on that Strategist lineup, as Schmungus going to be removing the Emma from play. Lownine, yeah, there it is. They're going to be buying the Loki and probably saving it so they get one-sided Loki right now.
So here, Schmungus is probably thinking again, like, what, really? So Magneto seems like the obvious one. Not going to be a save for quite some time. But now that you've played a couple of rounds against this team, like Schmungus, what else is causing you issues? Would you even consider taking out the Punisher at this rate? Or does it feel like Crisis will just rotate to something else like the Winter Soldier?
Yeah, Winter Soldier is definitely still something that you're worried about, especially if Schmungus are playing dive. It should be noted, however, that Rixichu has been subbed in and Necros has been taken out. So already Lownine are coming in with a little bit less information on what potentially Schmungus want to be running when those spawn doors open, as Lownine are actually going to be banning out that Venom. So Andrew is going to be removed, and I like this. This is the Captain America save that I was hoping to see come through from Lownine. Saint Tomoto is going to be able to pick that one up, as Schmungus did like late targeting out their Captain America. So instead, they're going to ban out the next best target, that's Psylocke, allowing the cap through but denying the follow-up damage.
Hey, you got the Lunar Snow saved on the side of Schmungus, which I guess if you're the Loki on the side of Lownine, you're licking your lips. That's a fantastic ultimate to be able to copy, and you also get Saint Tomoto's Captain America, which does feel like, again, like there's not too much pressure put onto Lownine, putting onto Schmungus, sorry, when it comes to that support backline. You do have to worry about the fact that there has been that substitution. Necros, a fantastic player, but maybe not the meta when it comes to the characters that he's predominantly used to playing. It might also mean if Rixichu's going to lock in the Ultron, that Craggy is freed up to play the likes of Punisher as well.
Yeah, Craggy can play over the Punisher, potentially the Star-Lord. Maybe we get to see the Scarlet Witch Dark Sorcery team up come through. Schmungus have liked to run that composition on Symbiotic Surface, as we can have a look to see what Lownine on their defense is going to be opting for. What other thing that Rixichu can potentially come on through is play Hit Scan. If they're anticipating that Lownine are going to be going for Torch, just the way that they did on their mid-time push, then the Hela coming to the mix is going to complicate things for the Flyers significantly, especially if the Hela is starting on defense, which means off angle already developed and potential pocket coming on through from something like an Invis, so your Hela can just play nice and safe behind the Guardian Shield in that first fight, and that Flyer never makes it off the ground.
Yeah, so this feels almost strategic as opposed to, oh, we lost Necros, you're off the team, you're benched. It really does feel like we just want to get more hit scan because of the aerial threats that are coming in, and they're on the money. Jerky is going to be over on that Human Torch, Crisis over on the Punisher. Standard sort of setup, but a scary lineup when it comes to the heroes available for Lownine on this defense.
Yeah, Lownine on this defense going to be holed up on that high ground. To have to be careful though that they don't play too split. One person isolated makes a very tasty teleport a target, which is why they're all going to be stacking on up. They've been able to scout out the Stranger's animation. The Schmungus are going to be trying for a teleport grab play, and they don't find anything until now. Gonski actually goes down. Regeneration Domain was not able to save the team through the Absolute Zero from KG, who picks up 26% ult charge from one Pierce ability alone.
Well, you at least not playing for a draw on this point. You've made some good progression. Jerky, suppressive fire more than anything. Wolver, very quick tenure over on the group to switch over to the Doctor Strange to allow a portal to try and contest this. But Schmungus, much like they did over against OGC, looking to take this first point very quickly. Full rage Wolverine in the hands of Craggy. He's got the freedom to do as Rixichu's going to be up in the sky as the Star-Lord. And Crisis, again, just suppressive fire, holding things down. And Schmungus actually having to disengage just for a moment at the very least, as they don't quite have the damage to burst through.
They do have a strategist ultimate to recontest if they want to use it though. Invis Boundary is up for Deadly. Whether or not they'll get the space to do it, I'm not sure. Jerky gets frozen. Unfortunately, doesn't manage to find the pick. However, Saint Tomoto comes on for the Peeler's final judgment with that Loki regeneration domain comes out off of the point though, Ryan. Everyone from Schmungus just decided, okay, we've got Invis Boundary. You might find the pick through it, but we've got the point.
It's the royal wave of Schmungus are just walking away on this giant symbiotic thing. I don't even have the words to describe it, but regardless, L9 are waving goodbye to it as it starts on its merry way. Just after you use the final judgment as well. You do have some really good ultimates if you're Lownine. You've almost got the freedom charge too, and an Eye of Agamotto. But still, you're going to be maybe a bit frustrated if things trucked on the way that they did.
True, Supernova comes out before Andrew can get Psionic Seduction to make the Flyer have a little bit more problems staying up in that sky. And that Supernova has been able to clear the high ground entirely. Lownine really wants to get Crisis into the bird's eye view to try and put more pressure onto Rixichu on this Star-Lord. They even contributed the regen domain to keep him up. That freedom charge comes out, gets grabbed immediately by the Carbon Crush coming in through from Andrew. KG comes on through with the fate of both worlds. Wolver Wolver tries to put a stop to the momentum that Schmungus were looking to secure of the Eye of Agamotto coming on out from his end. And off of the back of that, Crisis and Jerky, the crossfire coming on through between the Torch and the Punisher, catch the disengaging players from Schmungus and make up a little bit of time, but they have to make sure that they're able to disengage cleanly too.
Ooh, that gets all of them.
Legend gets so many, but they've still managed to got the Invis Boundary to heal for the most part.
Craggy caught so many of them with the last stand, and the invisible boundary, I think, was only on Pink Clone that wasn't caught. So this counter attack that's coming from Crisis, a real savior here. A nice fight for Lownine, but that's one to definitely watch back. That seemed that Craggy was able to find a good amount of CC onto the targets of the defenders, but not quite enough to get any eliminations on your side.
Pine Clone, what you need to do as an invis once you've got boundary is not get caught by the last stand, and that's exactly what he's able to do. Strange teleport comes on through from Schmungus, avoiding the poke coming on out from Jerky and Crisis, but Jerky does have another supernova. Boga's got the Eye of Agamotto. Lownine keeping up the pressure on the Strange, but he doesn't have the confidence to use it. Pine Clone, can we find the force physics? No, but we've got the regeneration domain. The copies have to be broken before the Maelstrom can come on through. They haven't been able to find the pick, as Jerky's been able to shut down the space that Schmungus were looking to secure. Supernova splits the team, and even though the Pillars made some little process, it's going to be all for naught, it feels, as they're again staggering out Andrew on this Emma. The Strange is utilizing the shield to make sure that no one takes a little bit too much damage coming on through. Schmungus try and save the Emma.
Jerky has had free reign up until this point potentially, as Craggy switched over to the Punisher, so a little bit more hit scan to really clear out the skies, as there hasn't been much to stop it. Crisis, another final judgment ready to go to try and keep a hold of this objective. More just sitting on the high ground, using the map's terrain to their advantage, as this slope makes things very difficult for Schmungus to actually get on top and take this engagement. Fate of both worlds is handy, but Gonski's looking to try and get the copy perhaps.
Schmungus too don't have ease of access into that high ground. If they have to wrap all the way around the left, they get pressured by Saint Tomoto. That allows Jerky the time to set up these fire pools and potentially have a pyro prison online yet again for the contest of that high ground space. Crisis backs out, has the final judgment. Schmungus have to be aware of it. The regeneration domain, so the Punisher can get more aggressive. Wolver manages to make sure that he avoids the force physics by clipping his body into the wall above it, and Freedom Charge and Final Judgment come through with the Punisher trying to cut off the disengage, and Schmungus have no space to run. They've got their backs against the corner. They answer back with a Final Judgment pocketed by a Luna of their own, but the heal isn't enough. Lownine find the break point. Craggy falls mid-ultimate, and Lownine is still holding strong.
Oh, the Supernova is in the most uncomfortable of places, and whilst you said that everything was just holding on, there was the thing that broke the camel's back for Schmungus. There's just 45 seconds left to keep things moving, and it feels like it's been a good few minutes before any progression has been made for Schmungus thus far. Crisis halfway to another ultimate. He has been absurdly strong, and now when you've got a lot more freedom of the Loki to support Saint Tomoto and the Captain America, it's going to be hard for Schmungus to get things going again.
Out of the fire into the pyro prison, Schmungus denied any space to potentially counterplay Crisis on this Punisher turret. Rixie Chews even over to the Ultron, still going to have a lot of duelist potential, but also sustain. Final Judgment comes through from Crisis yet again, kept safe by the regeneration domain from his Loki. Gonski even was able to find the God of Mischief to copy the Invis Boundary. Crisis is able to use the shotgun to avoid the silence coming on through from the Psionic Seduction. Pineclow's got his own actual Invis Boundary, and Schmungus are out of ultimates. They're out of bodies. They're going to be out of time as well, as Lownine managed to slam the door on Schmungus's approach. Point B, halfway through, barely, is as far as the team makes it.
With the first point going fairly quickly in favor of Schmungus, the way that ended is going to feel a little bit scary at this rate. Tournament life on the line, and Pink Clone on this invisible woman has made so much happen off the back of these invisible boundaries, really just taking some of the impact away from Schmungus overall. Craggy, whether it's the Final Judgment, whether it's the Galactic Legend, the Rixitude that was playing over on Star-Lord, it felt that nothing was really coming through at all offensively on the side of Schmungus. Now that they're defending, Lownine don't have too much pressure to get on the map, but Schmungus have also had pretty good holds over on Symbiotic Showdown. It'd have to be a hell of a one to win out here.
They need to be able to find a pick onto Jerky or Crisis, because these two duelists getting to stay alive at the same time is a situation that Schmungus just can't deal with. If they can find one, then they can immediately turn their attention to the other. But at the same time, if they're looking at the Punisher and the torch is still up, the torch is getting more value, and vice versa. And Lownine did such a good job of putting the resources into that Punisher, of utilizing Jerky's Pyro Prison uptimes as well when the Punisher turret was in play, so that all of the shields being stacked in front of that Punisher turret don't get broken, because no one can peek it without taking that chunk damage coming on through from the Pyro Prison. Oh no. Wolver sets up the counter portal. Does he manage?
Well,
Schmungus been able to find 4 people off the map before.
yeah.
From the side of Lownine pulls for it.
We're able to get through, and the play is one that we've actually seen from L9 before over on Central Park. Just opening the doorway, a turret to set up from Crisis to hopefully have a good run of this. I think they were actually on the offensive side of this beforehand, on the receiving end. And now Craggy being able to have a bit more freedom with the characters that he's playing now that Necros is on the sideline and Rixitu's coming in to make that triple support with the Ultron work just a little bit more.
Crisis, slowly but surely taking away shield resources. They feel the confidence to go for an aggressive play. Out comes Regeneration Domain. Moves forward to take pressure onto the Strange. Moves backward to make sure that the Punisher doesn't get traded. But Saint Moto has been taken down. Jerky's entrance is now not clear for go. And it is going to be Lownine having to back on off. The torch making sure with the spam pressure that Schmungus don't get to chase for more.
These resets are going to be something that Schmungus are hungry for, but also they are just sticking bodies on the point, just trying to hold things down. Rage of Ultron is going to be the opening ultimate for this fight, this defensive side, it feels like. And really, it is just Lownine holding things out. They're not too concerned about it, just waiting out the storm to an extent, as they're not too far away from having that invisible boundary and the combination of a Loki ultimate. Final Judgment for Crisis going to be the thing that starts off this attack.
Yeah, they weren't able to stop Lownine from building up those ultimates, nor was Rage of Ultron able to give them the space to build something to counterplay the Final Judgment. Not when Gonski was able to get the copy onto the Lunar Snow. Fate of both worlds, 40% damage boost to every single shot coming on through from that Punisher's side, and Schmungus crumble. They're going to try and make a play for this high ground hold, but Jerky already on top of it. Same to be said of Saint Moto, just disrupting Schmungus's forces, trying to give them reason to burn an ultimate before we go into where the fight actually matters on the payload.
Ooh, Galactic Legend, the sort of dashes have had to go back in a negative direction, but Saint Moto's the first one that's going to go down. Pink Floyd, I think, did have the invisible boundary throughout the whole of the beginning of that ultimate from the Star-Lord, just choosing to use it now. Play it down, but still able to hold on, and actually they are getting this objective moving along, just passing about 60 meters. Psionic Seduction going to be coming in and pulling in Lownine into these fights, and it's a good reset from Schmungus, but with just under 4 minutes to hold on to, there has to be more fights like that.
True, but Lownine don't have space. That's immediately theirs. Punisher is a brilliant duelist when you have the space. When you can, at every single fight at the beginning, set up a turret, stack shields in front of it, and stop the other side from walking forward. That's why Schmungus used things like the Rage of Ultron to deny the high ground hold for Lownine, to have the space to set the Punisher up. If Schmungus can pick apart the resources that this Punisher has, he's going to be finding far less value. We can already see that Crisis is not getting the confidence to use that Punisher turret, but he has been able to find the poke damage to build up the Final Judgment. We're headed to Final Fight territory. Out comes the God of Mischief. On both ends, we've got a Luna dancing, but it's a damage boost for Crisis, and the Final Judgment might be the final play Lownine needs to unlock for a symbiotic surface. Schmungus are falling. If this boundary is the thing that they're forced to take cover, and Force Physics comes out from Deadly, just trying to delay a potential regroup, but it's not to be. And Lownine managed to see the threat of Schmungus gone. What a team, what a Punisher, what a pocket that they're able to find for Crisis.
Yeah, just the mental resilience for them to stay within this one. Crisis, a bit of just a missing factor in that first domination map that Schmungus were able to pick up. But once we moved over to the different objectives, it felt there like Schmungus, yeah, they were having some really good fights on the defense, but that final point was taken with still like 3 minutes left on the clock. It would have had to be an absurd hold from Schmungus to make that one a lot closer on the line. But it does mean that they won't be making it to playoffs. A team that I think is, we can't even call the stream team anymore, because these guys have been so experienced in playing in Marvel Rivals in previous games, and they're clearly here to do some damage and win. They might be only scrimming a couple of hours a week in comparison to other teams that are doing that a day, but still, there's a lot of promise on this team. If they want to put more time in, they can definitely reach the likes of playoffs and the top 8 finish.
Yeah, and if you're the side of Lownine too, everyone who's going to be matching up against this team, they're going to be taking notes on this match, because it feels like Lownine's strategy was a little bit revealed. Gonski with the Loki, one of the first times that we're seeing a team prioritize saving a strategist in the advanced ban system over a Vanguard. And this Loki was absolutely paramount to their game plan. So much of what they were able to find was off of the back of regeneration domains, or like you said, the fact that even though Schmungus were able to get the one-sided Luna, it was only one-sided Luna until God of Mischief came through, and then Gonski just had an immediate copy target, and they just had so much healing and so much damage boost. It takes so much confidence. It's a very scary thing if you're a Luna Snow player trying to use Fate of Both Worlds to damage boost your players, because they made it a couple of patches ago that there's a lock time now. You can't just go between damage boost heal, damage boost heal, damage boost heal on your scroll wheel any further. There's literally a time gate that is attached to each of the effects. So if they're not careful, if they're not making sure that that Punisher is being kept up from every single part of healing coming over from that team, when Gonski swaps over to that damage boost, it all falls apart. Crisis with his final judgment gets shredded, but they do such a good job of making sure that his health bar just does not drop in those really crucial moments.
It was a hell of a series for Lownine. Like, I 100% agree with the point of just maybe what they've shown might be counted before, but it's not going to matter too much, at least for the rest of this week. You are playing for seeding, playing to, frankly, just avoid some of the stronger teams, but we were sort of looking at it more of a sense of avoiding Virtus Pro. But that would have been a case of Virtus Pro if they had gone through 2-0. But before we go any further looking into that series, we do have an interview from Lownine, and I'd missed who it was that we're talking to. We're about to see in a second, so it's not going to be too much of an issue. But I mean, Moxie was a fantastic showing from them overall, full stop.
Yes, it absolutely was. And hello, Jerky.
Hello,
congratulations on the win. Give us a little bit of a rundown on that last map, because Ryan and I, we've seen so many games in EMEA where Vanguards have been the thing that everyone has saved in that first insta-save slot, and you opted for the Loki without revealing too many secrets, without revealing all of the source. Why did you guys prioritize the Loki over a Vanguard save?
Well, I think our Vanguards have the advantage where they're really versatile and they can play everything, and I don't think our team is necessarily made up because of our Vanguards. I think we're mostly made up because we're just a really good team, right? So we don't need a Mag, for example, or we don't need a EMEA, for example. I think we just prioritize what's our comfort pick and we just roll with that.
Yeah, I think... Do you feel like it's a bit of a misplay from other teams then, that are also being in the scene a while, very flexible on the characters that they play, to be sort of putting so much pressure into getting either Emma Frost or Magneto first? Because there's a lot of, Saint Tomoto's a fantastic Vanguard, especially with his Captain America being able to put focus on that. Do you think it's a misplay that people are focusing too much on taking out the strong Vanguards when the supports are the ones that are definitely being focused the most?
Well, personally, I just think that a lot of other compositions work for a lot of other teams, right? There's obviously the res comp, I'm not sure for the exact name, but there's a res comp where there's an Adam, Mantis and whatever, and we don't play that, right? And some teams might prioritize that, some teams might prioritize the Mag, some teams might prioritize the EMEA, so I think it's just preference, and I think a lot of really good compositions work with a lot of different teams, so at the end of the day, it's just preference.
And is it preference the reason why you're running the Torch? Because when those patch notes came through, everyone might maybe have overreacted and said, okay, Torch is just gutted. Is there a reason why you think that Torch is still strong?
Well, I think the Torch last patch was just really strong, and he was just completely overtuned. But now he is kind of on a middle ground where he does work with a lot of comms but also doesn't work in others. So I think he's in a really good state right now where he works sometimes but not always. So I think he's a really good character right now. He works in a lot of compositions, but also, without being too arrogant, I think the enemy team just had the human candle Necros. So yeah, I think that's why I picked the Torch there.
I mean, you gotta assert yourself whatever you can, I guess, but it does mean that you sort of go on further into the tournament. You've had full free mappers as well all the way through this tournament so far. Like, it was a loss against All Business, it was win against Blood Cariudo. What did you take from that first loss against All Business? That's a hard game because we haven't seen them play for a bit. They've progressed. We're going to see them a little bit later on today. Like, what have you taken from last week into this week when it comes to your own performance? Is it looking at the draft? Is it going, wait, let's put more stock onto getting our support players onto their strong picks because our Vanguard's better? Like, certain maps. What has been the focus of this week that has led to you getting to this spot?
Well, without revealing too much, I think we're a team that's new, so we didn't have a lot of time to practice and to really test out those bans. So getting into this tournament, we didn't really know what to ban exactly. We were just kind of playing off of our experience and whatever. But now that we actually got some practice in and scrimmed quite a lot, I think we maybe not perfected the bans, but definitely improved them. So I think the draft is going to be way different against All Business, and I think it will go in our favor this time. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Jerky. Once again, congratulations on your win. We'll let you get back to the rest of your day.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.